Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, Ian is a hurricane again and is expected to make another landfall tomorrow. We'll tell you where. And President Joe Biden visits FEMA headquarters today to thank workers. He and the FEMA administrator discussed the hurricane, both saying it is still a danger.
Plus, what's left of a hurricane that devastated portions of the Florida coast is heading in our direction. Latest breakdown ahead as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Tropical Storm Ian is now Hurricane Ian again as of 5 o'clock and making its way towards South Carolina. It crossed the state of Florida before moving back out to sea earlier today. Now officials in South Carolina are warning folks if they live in low-lying areas, today may be their last chance to leave. CBS's Michael George begins our hurricane coverage.
Already the winds are intensifying here in South Carolina. We're on Folly Beach. That's about 10 miles south of Charleston. And you can see behind me the waves are just getting more and more powerful. And that's the real danger here. Coastal flooding. People up and down the South Carolina coastline are preparing for this storm. We've seen people lay out sandbags to protect their homes, to protect their businesses. Some are evacuating the area. Now, forecasters now believe the tropical storm Ian will gain strength and become a hurricane again. They expect it to make landfall here Friday as a Category 1 hurricane. Now, even though experts don't believe we'll see the same widespread devastation that we've seen in Florida, emergency managers say make no mistake, this is a life-threatening storm and should be taken seriously. Wind speeds could reach 70 miles per hour. Storm surge flooding could reach 7 feet. There's even the possibility of tornadoes. So people who live in this area are being told tonight is your last chance to prepare for this storm or leave the area. On Folly Beach in South Carolina, Michael George, CBS News.
And as of about a half hour ago, Tropical Storm Ian is once again Hurricane Ian. Winds of 75 miles per hour, just 1 mile per hour higher than the bottom of the hurricane scale. That makes it a Category 1 hurricane. It's not forecast to strengthen much more through the next few days, but you'll notice 240 miles south of Charleston, South Carolina, where it is pegged to make landfall in less than 24 hours. It's what's left of Ian. Well, I mean, Ian's still there, but what the remnants of Ian will be heading in our direction, and that's why we have declared a WYMT First Alert Weather Day. The remnants of Ian moving into the region as we head into late tomorrow night, through the weekend and into early Monday, and we could see water rises on those creeks and streams with the potential for that heavy rain. I do want to stress this is not something we'll be seeing tonight. All quiet outside right now. 61 in Wise with beautiful sunny skies. Same thing from Buffalo Mountain here in Perry County. Mid-60s the temperature. That's where many of us are. Middle and upper 60s at this hour. We'll continue to see those clouds pushing on into the region as we head into the day tomorrow. For tonight, though, quiet and cool with lows in the 40s. Details on when we could see the first showers from Ian and when it starts to move out coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thanks. Volunteers are preparing to head south to help hurricane victims. Dozens will leave Sunday to help feed thousands of people through Kentucky Baptist Relief. One volunteer says the group is typically on the go for several months out of the year, and it's no coincidence that those months typically correspond to hurricane season. This year is different, though. Kentucky Baptist Relief's work started a little earlier this year, right here in eastern Kentucky. Now those volunteers are preparing to head south to Florida to cook for thousands of people.
We're going to face the same things. We're going to see people that's lost everything.
Baptist Relief hopes to have about 60 volunteers, and they will come from all across Kentucky, including some from here in eastern Kentucky that live in flooded areas. The Kentucky crews are planning to be at a church in Sarasota, which is right on the coast south of the St. Petersburg, Tampa area. Well, South Florida first responders have been deploying to help Ian victims. More than 90 search and rescue crews departed this morning en route to the hard-hit west coast of Florida. Trucks carrying boats, search dogs, and other first responders expect to arrive throughout the day to provide support. In the Orlando area, authorities are working to bring people affected by flooding to higher ground today. Osceola County Sheriff Marcos Lopez says the department has brought out an old Army truck that weighs 5 tons to help with rescues there. The National Hurricane Center says Ian is causing catastrophic flooding over east central areas of the state, so it's not just the West Coast. The center warned that Ian could produce life-threatening flooding, storm surge, and gusty winds across portions of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. A group of Good Samaritans rescued an elderly man stranded in surging waters in Bonita Springs, Florida. This video, recorded by the Collier County Cowboys, shows the man being lifted from a vehicle submerged in floodwaters and dragged through waist-high water to safety. They said the vehicle's door was wedged shut prior to their intervention. The group saw an elderly man struggling in the vehicle and knew he needed help. The guys managed to grab the door and pry it open. The man inside was a bit shocked, so he didn't want to let go. The group assured him they were there to help. The guys carefully picked him up out of the car and brought him to shore away from the current. Many stores are still open in Savannah, Georgia, but the decision to close seems to be on a case-by-case basis. Some booth renters are starting to prepare as best they can by placing sandbags at the entrance of their booth. An artist said that he wanted to be sure he did what he could to protect his beautiful woodworking inside. There are still some tourists and visitors walking around. It's quiet, but not completely empty. One visitor has a wedding planned for Friday in the middle of all the expected weather.
I've got people coming in from thousands of miles away and 80 miles away. So we've got a ton of people, and we lost some people along the way, and we are sad, but we're lucky for the break in the weather, and we think that things are going to be on the bright side tomorrow, and can't be anything but happy on your wedding day. So we're going to have a blast no matter what.
Should be a memorable one for sure. Huffman did say they're still expecting around 60 wedding guests for his wedding in the downtown area of Savannah, and it's planning to wait out the rest of the weather this weekend after that. Well, a new study shows roughly half of the hospitals in 25 metropolitan areas are at risk of flooding from a potential storm. The GeoHealth Journal published a story today explaining a Category 2 storm could bring high water to these facilities. The findings are based on data from nearly 700 hospitals located within 10 miles of the Atlantic and Gulf coasts. This is the first such research to look into the risks hurricanes can bring to hospital-based care and treatments. Among the areas where hurricanes could cause concerns, Miami, Boston, New Orleans, and New York City. President Biden addressed the ongoing federal response to Hurricane Ian during a visit to FEMA today. While long-term planning for Florida's recovery is underway, both the president and the FEMA administrator warned the storm is still a danger, with predictions it will hit other states tomorrow. CBS's Deborah Alfarone has the latest from the White House.
You're doing a hell of a job.
President Biden personally thanked workers at the Federal Emergency Management Agency after he received a briefing on now Tropical Storm Ian.
My message to the people of Florida and to the country is, at times like this, America comes together.
The president again discussed the federal response in a call with Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis Thursday morning. The two ideological rivals have, for now, put politics aside.
He thanked me for the immediate response we had. He told me how much he appreciated it, said he was extremely happy with what was going on. This is not about whether anything having to do with our disagreements politically. This is about saving people's lives, homes, and businesses.
President Biden says he's already approved federal disaster funds for at least 9 Florida counties, and the White House says more areas could be added as officials evaluate the damage. FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell is expected to travel to the Sunshine State Friday to check on response efforts.
FEMA and our partners across the federal, state, and local levels remain ready and prepared to help these communities in their greatest time of need.
President Biden says he also plans to go to Florida to thank rescue workers in person when conditions allow.
The Senate stands ready to help Floridians with whatever they need to stay safe and rebuild their communities.
Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody in Florida.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers also pledged to do everything in their power to assist those affected. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
President Biden said he also wants to go to Puerto Rico, adding he is committed to the island's recovery from Hurricane Fiona. The president has already approved federal disaster funding, and more than 1,000 federal response workers are on the island. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, it's a date every parent with a child heading to college needs to know. All important information about the application that opens the door to college funds.
Plus, continuing to watch the latest on Ian as the, eventual remnant low heads our way. The breakdown of heavy rain chances coming up.